Just taking a quick look at this new Browey C150. This is like the third or fourth Browi we've taken a look at on this channel, and they're all very unique, interesting products, right? They're very unusual. So if you're looking for, kind of a quirky power station, take a look at this brand, right? You're not going to find these features on something like a Jackery, right? Including this ability to hand crank charge this thing. Now, there is like an asterisk here, is the hand crank actually only charges the smaller battery. Yeah, there's actually two batteries. So the main battery is 153 watt hours, which is evidently 41,000 milliamp hours. So, that's the one that's going to do all the work, basically. But they're saying that if you need some light, if you just have like zero power and you need some light, yeah, you can actually crank this thing and charge up the little battery. Now, you got to do a lot of cranking here. You're going to have to crank this thing, they say, at 2 revolutions per second. And yeah, you do the math, 60 seconds per minute, it's 120 RPM. You're going to have to crank this thing for 1 minute, 120, 120 rotations basically in 1 minute. And then you can get 5 minutes of light. So you're gonna have to do a lot of cranking if you if you don't have any light like all night long. You're gonna be cranking this thing all the time basically, right? You get like 4 minutes of rest. So now it is a nice light. It's a very nice light, right? It's almost the size of the entire power station. And yes, this is a small power station. We'll get to the size and weight here in a second, but still, this is going to light up a room or your camping tent or whatever, right? Whatever. And really nice that there's 3 brightness levels as well. Now, this thing does have kind of all the typical output ports you would expect to find on a power station, but they're not quite as usable as you might hope for. So the AC outlet, 120 volts, 150 watts, sounds great. But there's no mention if it's a pure sine wave, right? So that's kind of a big question mark. In fact, in this size, in this price, it might not be pure sine wave, right? And if it's not, I wouldn't recommend using it because it could damage, modified sine waves can damage equipment. So that's a big question mark. The DC output. Notice they say DC, not 12 volts. Now, it can do 12 volts, but it depends where the battery's at, right? Because it's not regulated. So, yeah, this little output here, if you want to power a 12-volt appliance, you really want to make sure that the battery on this thing is somewhere between 0, completely dead, and 50%. Right? Because the voltage range of this battery is actually 12 to 16.8 volts. So if you were above 50%, you'd be at, 15, 16 volts, which is just too high for most 12-volt appliances and could damage them as well. So you got to keep this in mind. And kind of is something to note here too, is that because of this voltage range, we know that this thing is not using LFP cells. This is using the older NMC cells. In fact, 4 of them in series. And we know that because of that voltage range. If it was LFP, the voltage range would be lower, right? So, this is not, they tried to make this thing as lightweight and compact as possible, right? This is not built for heavy use. This is a novelty product. You're going to be using this for emergency light, yes, or you're going to be using it for primarily USB stuff. Now, to charge this thing, you're going to be using the USB-C. So kind of interesting that they don't mark these as bidirectional or in and out, right? So, yeah, if you want to charge it, you're going to need like a USB-C wall charger or, of course, solar. If you can find a solar panel that outputs USB-C. So, but just remember, they say they recommend a 100-watt solar panel, which actually is a good idea. because, a lot of times you'll only get like 60, 70 watts out of a 100-watt solar panel. But yeah, just keep that in mind that you're not going to be able to charge this thing any faster than about 60 or 65 watts, right? They say 3 hours. And, considering how small and light and ultra portable this thing is, it is okay. These are okay specs. So 1.68 pounds. Actually, that's that's not right. That would be amazing if it was that light. It's actually 3.7 pounds. So I think that's probably was kilos, and they forgot to change that. So yeah, it's almost 4 pounds, but still, that is pretty light, right? It's pretty light. I don't know if it's light enough to put on your keychain.